You guys all know the meme, right? The one where I want shorter games with worse graphics made by people who are paid more to work less, and I'm not kidding. Well, Sam Marshall and his company DOSMANGames have made that meme their personality by publishing and self-publishing indie retro shooters made by just a couple of people that take just a couple of hours to beat and often cost just a couple of dollars. Dead Trash by Crowhill Studios is the latest game to use this formula and prove that it's probably the smartest innovation in the indie space in quite some time. It's short and mostly sweet, and it starts off following a city planner who's stuck in the middle of a very COVID-inspired lockdown because of a virus that's killing or mutating everyone. The government's trying to cover it up, so hazmat dudes are everywhere purging the area of mutants and evidence, so it's up to us to get to the bottom of this cover-up and save the city. It's classic B-movie schlock that's right in line with games like Doom and Blood from the 90s. And in keeping with that 90s theme, the cutscenes and models are stylized photorealism, much like what Daredevil artist Alex Maleev or Philadelphia's Jason Sean Alexander might make, or that you might see in games like Realms of the Haunting. And once that dark synthy opening track from Brazen Skull hits, you're in for something that feels as 90s as insane Capri Sun commercials or Saturday morning cartoons on Fox Kids. The vibes are immaculate. Hey there, if you're enjoying the video, please let the algorithm know by liking the video and commenting while you do. That'll really help get the word out. And if you're feeling frisky, I even dare you to subscribe. And I must emphasize just how good the music is, especially the track that will be playing in the background of this video. It tells a story, it has movements, tempo changes, riffs, and yet also lots of melody. And praise God, hallelujah, it's not just another indie metal soundtrack hoping to replicate what Dusk and Doom 2016 did. So, stylistic glazing aside, how does it play? Well, the closest analog that I can think of is actually Concrete Visions, Sam Marshall's very first game that he's tried to scrub from history by delisting it from Steam, but I'll bug him by just bringing it up here and saying that's a pretty good reference point if you want to know what kind of game Dead Trash is. While a simplistic game, Concrete Visions definitely had some character, with its grungy nighttime streets and alleys full of crazy hobos with melee weapons, begging to be put down with your motley assortment of broken bottles, shotguns, pistols, and more. Dead Trash, intentionally or otherwise, channels that very same condemned vibe to chilling effect. The titular trash is everywhere. Shopping carts line the streets, trash cans are tipped over and spilling out their contents, and hobos with skull masks or just their skulls mutated into a crisp come out of the woodwork with axes and guns alike to make you as dead as the trash lying around. You've got nothing but a hammer at first, which requires 3 carefully timed swings to down even the most basic enemies. Even the axe, while powerful, requires a very specific timing to not get counterstruck while swinging. Enter the gunmen, who often appear from the darkness or are hard to spot therein, and you've got a really challenging first level. Even more challenging if you're like me and get stuck for an hour on this level and only make it easier for yourself once you realize how much of the trash lying around can actually be broken open for ammo, and how the trash cans can be broken down for health. Also, fun fact, Indy Emil of Reverend fame actually is responsible for making those trash bag textures. So pay attention to those trash bags, not just because Emil's a good dude who's worth the credit, but also because those trash bags were the gate keeping me from progressing in the game. The opening level is honestly just a little too hard. I kept getting skunked by gunmen from the dark and I had no way to close the gap to kill them before they killed me. But the real reason I wasn't able to fend them off was because I didn't have any ammo, and that was because I didn't realize until my second hour of grinding this level that the trash bags by Emil were actually breakable and contained ammo. The guys have since added a pop-up hint right at the very beginning of the game alerting you to this feature because of all the feedback about how many people were missing this. Just imagine the exacting melee timing and no quick save and all these other factors, and you've got quite the challenging formula here. That's right, there are no quick saves. There's only saves in between levels. Now, this isn't a huge problem later on in the game because the game gets progressively easier, but let's just say you're going to feel it up front. So be aware of that. Strangely, the game forecasts itself as being a tense, timing-paced exchange of, melee attacks that save your ammo and make you really have to grind through these levels. But then it becomes progressively more and more easy, and the game really opens up by the end. It ends up playing a lot more like a classic Doom clone by even the second half of the first level, and even more so as the game gives you new guns and tons more ammo. I actually started to miss the intense timing-based melee combat, but that interesting tension evaporates soon into the much more conventional shooting. But I'm not really complaining because these are some really fun weapons. Your first gun is a nail gun that doesn't need to reload and sounds super punchy. Next, you get a classic double-barreled shotgun, and holy Hanna-Barbera, this thing will click click boom your enemies into tomato paste so satisfyingly that it's concerning to my morality how much I wanted to keep doing it. Soon these gnarly weapons are joined by a juicy 1911 model pistol, a side-fed old-school machine gun, an AK-47 variant, and a kind of sniper magnum that you're going to have to explain the ballistics of to me. All of the weapons are fun to use, and for the most part, it doesn't super matter which ones you are using, because you have that kind of doom freedom to just pick your opponent's poison and unload. All of the guns are loud and impactful with excellent enemy feedback in terms of animation and blood spatter. The reload animations are excellently detailed and give you that "let's fucking go again" energy as soon as you're reloaded. So it's interesting that it seems like that there's a much more measured and tactical type of game lurking just below the surface, what with the timing-based aspects of the melee weapons and then also the reloading of the guns. Now as it stands, it'll still come up in battle that you can't just run in there and double-barreled shotgun everything because it has quite a reload time. That really only amounts to you sort of dodging behind cover or back down a hallway that you just popped out of. It's interesting that this game has reloading at all, as most boomer shooters eschew this. Most enemies just bum rush you, and once you've got your ammo sorted, you're just shooting them in mostly the same way as you would the next one, regardless of which sprite is advancing. The gunners are still the only guys you really need to zigzag back and forth between cover for. The sprites on the lab monsters of the sewer models are pretty cool though, admittedly, even if they don't function all that differently. I will say though, it's weird how the trash bag guys just sort of explode into acid when they die, but it never really impacts combat. They just flop over dead and you have to wait for them to stop spewing acid to get past them. Nothing really to think about here, just kind of an annoying pop-up hazard. But they are part of the sewers, which, while a fun shooting gallery, is easily the most drawn out and padded the game gets, and it's the least interesting in terms of level design. But what do you expect? It's a sewers level, and as evidenced by my Daredevil and Hellboy videos recently and countless other examples, sewers always suck, and for some reason, like some Illuminati plan, every game seems to have one, so it's just the way it is, and we're gonna have to deal with it, I guess. Speaking of level design, while the sewers are rather bland, the opening levels are actually really well planned out and fun to navigate. They're never too complicated, but they aren't afraid to hide mission-critical keys behind long hidden passageways or inside of little tunnels that you need to crouch to enter that are just out of sight. Fortunately, they're never too hard to find, and there's a little thrill of discovery each time you do the extra work to figure out what you're missing and the level breaks wide open for you yet again. I also need to highlight the level where you're climbing across scaffolding in between high buildings and broken down bridges, as it really grants the game a sense of scale and measurable decay. Overall, the levels are worth learning because they're concise without being simplistic, at least early on, so mad kudos here to Crowhill. The last thing I'll say about gameplay is that the boss battles are quite uneven. The first one is this hobo guy who scoots around in his little shopping cart and throws heat-seeking Molotov cocktails at you, but they don't blow up until they've actually hit you, so they just sort of keep spinning around like little helicopters. And you're incentivized to put this guy down fast because the more he throws out, the more things you have to dodge and the less space you have to actually avoid his other attacks. Even if you've managed to glitch the game out and get stuck above the level where he can't reach you, you're likely to run out of ammo up here before he dies, so you're pretty much stuck either way. The second boss has an outrageous range on his flamethrower, but the arena's so big that you can easily cheese him out. The last two boss fights are a bit of a nightmare though, with the constantly spawning horde closing off your ability to strafe a very hard to see enemy who looks almost exactly like his minions, which then transitions into one of the worst last bosses I've ever fought against, with an area that gives you one whole area of cover to just camp behind and trade pot shots, hoping to outlast the hit-scanning bad guy. If that wasn't weird enough, boss will hang out in a pain state once you've defeated it, but the level won't end, and somehow you're supposed to know to go pick up some keycards that spawn in the middle of the arena amidst all the ammo pickups, and go into one of the 4 or so doors to end the level. Okay then. The ideas themselves are good, and I love the idea of the first boss being the ultimate hobo with his shopping cart and Molotovs, but the execution...
What are you talking about?
The execution is kind of frustrating like a bullet hell game, and it's just imprecise. Factor in how, amidst all these enemy spawns and heat-seeking projectiles, the bosses hit scan you, and it just all feels a bit dogpile-y. That said, while there are some initial frustrations that re-emerge by the end, the game's pretty solid. The guns feel great, and the style of the world is immersive and full of character. There's a bit of padding towards the middle, but at least it's a good excuse to get a lot of use out of your guns. The ending level's not great in my opinion, both in terms of how straightforward it is and how much the boss fights are kind of a pain in the ass. But the opening levels are really good. The overall design has got a lot of character to it. The mood is really good because of the music. And they give you as much time as a lot of $15 to $20 games do. And there's just a sense of good-natured fun here.
I'm gonna fuck you up.
This formula of shorter but sweeter is working, and that's why Dead Man's Trash is this man's treasure. Great job, Crowhill, Brazen Skull, Indian Meal, and all the other folks that worked on this game. And a big thanks to Sam Marshall for giving me early access to this game, and a big thanks to you for watching and dropping by. I'll see you in the next one. So, if you're enjoying the channel and want to help it get to the next level, please consider becoming a patron or a channel member. By doing so, you'll be shouted out in the credits of every video, get early access to new videos, receive game keys as available, and even be able to vote or contribute to upcoming projects. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, these people thought so, and I have to thank them very much for their generous support. Mark Neubauer, Deadforge, Hey Blondie, Yak Show, M, Bibby F. and Bloxburg, Melancholy Geek, Garrison, and an extra special shout out to those contributing to my highest paid tiers, James Wyatt, and the Nth Review. And if you're not tired of me by now, check me out on the Quad Damage podcast with Deadforge and Robert Yap as we talk first-person games with developers and content creators alike. God bless you everyone, and I'll see you soon.